Imagine standing on the precipice of existence, looking down into a vast, silent chasm. That chasm, for Irvin D. Yalom, isn't merely the absence of others. It is a fundamental, undeniable reality of human aloneness. This isn't just about feeling lonely on a Friday night or wishing you had more friends. It's a deeper, more profound truth embedded in the very fabric of our being. Yalom, as an existential psychotherapist, doesn't shy away from this uncomfortable truth. In fact, he argues that understanding and confronting this inherent isolation is not just a precursor to a more authentic life, but an unavoidable rite of passage. He posits that each of us arrives in this world alone and will ultimately depart it alone. No matter how deep our connections, how intense our love, or how strong our bonds, there remains an unbridgeable gulf between individuals. We can never fully know another's experience, nor can another truly inhabit our internal world. This concept, often referred to as existential isolation, is one of Yalom's forgivens of existence, alongside death, freedom, and meaninglessness. It's a reality that many of us spend our entire lives trying to outrun, distract ourselves from, or deny. We fill our schedules, scroll endlessly through social media, or chase fleeting pleasures, all in an unconscious attempt to drown out the quiet hum of our solitary existence. Yalom's work, particularly evident in his academic cornerstone Existential Psychotherapy, delves into this isolation with unflinching honesty. He doesn't offer a quick fix or a comforting platitude. Instead, he invites us to gaze directly into this chasm. He writes about the brutal fact that each of us enters existence alone and must depart from alone. This isn't meant to be a morbid or depressing revelation, but rather a clarifying one. It frees us from a futile pursuit of an impossible union that would erase our individual boundaries. When we understand that loneliness, in this fundamental sense, is an intrinsic part of the human condition, we can begin to differentiate it from the social loneliness that can indeed be alleviated through connection. Consider the characters in his novels, or the patients he describes in his case studies. Even in the most intimate therapeutic sessions or the most passionate romantic relationships, there are moments where the individual is acutely aware of being fundamentally separate. It's the realization that while others can offer support, love, and companionship, they cannot live our lives for us, feel our feelings for us, or make our choices for us. This personal responsibility, a direct offshoot of our inherent isolation, can be terrifying. It thrusts us into a position where we are solely accountable for our lives, our values, and our choices, without the ultimate comfort of blending entirely with another. This initial confrontation with existential loneliness, while perhaps unsettling, is crucial. It sets the stage for a deeper exploration of how we react to this truth. Do we build walls, pretend it doesn't exist, or project our fears onto others? Or do we, as Yalom suggests, learn to embrace it, finding strength and authenticity in its quiet presence? This isn't about resigning ourselves to a life of solitude, but rather recognizing the bedrock of our being, from which all genuine connection can then emerge. It's about understanding that our longing for connection, in its deepest sense, often stems from this awareness of our separateness, driving us to bridge the unbridgeable in meaningful, albeit always partial, ways. Without this foundational understanding, our attempt to alleviate loneliness might always feel like patching a hole in a vast ocean, yet the first truth Yalom presents is our inherent aloneness. The second, equally potent insight is how vehemently we resist it. We, as humans, are masters of evasion when it comes to uncomfortable realities, and few realities are as unsettling as the notion of our solitary existence. This resistance often manifests as a masks we wear, elaborate psychological defenses, social performances, and even outright deceptions that shield us and others from our deeper vulnerabilities and fears of isolation. Yalom brilliantly dissects these layers of pretense, particularly in his novel Lie on the Couch, where he pulls back the curtain on the intricate dance of half-truths, self-deceptions, and sometimes deliberate falsehoods exchanged not only between patient and therapist, but within ourselves. In the world of Yalom's therapy room, lying isn't always about malicious intent. Often, it's a desperate attempt to protect a fragile ego, to present a more palatable version of oneself, or to avoid the terrifying intimacy that truly honest self-disclosure might bring. We curate our online presences, meticulously craft our public personas, and engage in superficial conversations, all in a subconscious effort to feel connected without truly exposing the very core of our isolated selves. This constant performance, however, paradoxically deepens a sense of loneliness. When we're always presenting a version of ourselves that isn't entirely authentic, the genuine connection we crave becomes impossible. We might be surrounded by people, but we feel profoundly unseen, unheard, and ultimately alone. Yalom's narratives frequently illustrate this point. His characters, often grappling with profound existential anxieties, might initially present a polished facade, recounting carefully constructed narratives of their lives. A patient might focus solely on external problems, a difficult boss, a problematic spouse, rather than confronting their own internal void or their fear of self-reliance. A therapist, too, can fall prey to this, clinging to theoretical frameworks or professional distance to avoid the raw, human encounter with their patients and their own vulnerability. This is where lying on the couch shines, exposed in the subtle and overt ways both sides of the therapeutic diet engage in these evasions. Yalom, with his characteristic honesty, suggests that therapists are just as human and susceptible to these defense mechanisms as their patients. The danger of wearing these masks is that they prevent us from forging genuine connections. If others only ever see the carefully constructed persona, how can they truly connect with the real person underneath? This leads to a profound sense of alienation, not just from others, but from oneself. We lose touch with our authentic feelings, desires, and fears, becoming strangers in our own skin. This internal dis-ease often manifests as anxiety, depression, or a pervasive feeling of emptiness, all symptoms of a life lived out of alignment with our true selves, hidden behind layers of pretense. Ultimately, this topic emphasizes that while existential loneliness is a given, the suffering of loneliness is often exacerbated by our strategies to avoid it. By constantly hiding, we miss opportunities for the very authentic connection that can mitigate the sting of our inherent separateness. It's a critical step in Yalom's therapeutic journey. Before we can build bridges, we must first acknowledge the walls we've erected. This sets the stage for the next topic, where we'll explore how, by bravely dropping these masks, we can begin to foster the truly meaningful encounters that alleviate the pain of isolation. Having acknowledged our inherent aloneness and the many masks we wear to avoid it, we arrive at a pivotal point in Irvin Yalom's philosophy, the profound and transformative power of authentic encounter. If we are fundamentally separate, and our attempts to deny this only deepen our suffering, how then do we bridge the unbridgeable? Yalom's answer lies not in dissolving our boundaries, but in meeting another human being with genuine presence, honesty, and empathy, creating moments of true, unvarnished connection that can profoundly alleviate the sting of isolation. This concept is vividly explored across much of Yalom's work, but it finds its most direct expression in the gift of therapy and his extensive writings on group psychotherapy, particularly the theory and practice of group psychotherapy. He argues that the very act of one human being truly seeing, hearing, and understanding another, without judgment or pretense, is a powerful antidote to the pain of loneliness. It's in these moments that we feel recognized, affirmed, and less alone in our unique struggles and vulnerabilities. Yalom often speaks of the healing factors in group therapy, among which universality, the realization that others share similar feelings and problems, and cohesiveness, the sense of belonging and acceptance within the group, directly counter the feeling of isolation. Consider the dynamic in a Yalomian therapy group. Individuals enter, often guarded, burdened by their secrets and the belief that their inner turmoil is uniquely shameful. Yet, as they begin to share, to risk vulnerability, something transformative occurs. One person expresses a deep fear, and another nods, saying, "I feel that too." In that instant, a bridge is built. The chasm of individual isolation doesn't disappear, but it's momentarily spanned by a shared human experience. As Yalom himself beautifully articulates in the gift of therapy, it is the relationship that heals. The specific techniques matter less than the quality of a human encounter. He encourages therapists to be fully present, to share their own humanity appropriately, and to foster an environment where patients feel safe enough to shed their masks. This isn't about superficial pleasantries or simply being in the same room as others. Authentic encounter demands courage. It requires us to drop the very masks we discussed in the previous point, to expose our insecurities, our fears, and our deepest longings. It's a reciprocal process. As we reveal ourselves, we invite others to do the same, creating a space of mutual vulnerability and understanding. This genuine sharing often reveals that the very aspects of ourselves we fear would lead to rejection are, in fact, the most common threads that bind us to others. The shame of a secret fear dissipates when we discover someone else harbors the exact same fear. Yalom's emphasis on the here and now in therapy is also crucial here. Authentic encounter isn't about dissecting the past endlessly, but about engaging with what is happening between people in the present moment. It's about noticing the subtle shifts in emotion, the unsaid words, the unspoken dynamics that unfold in real time. By attending to these moments, individuals learn how they relate to others, how they contribute to their own isolation, and how they might begin to forge more genuine connections in their daily lives. This transition from isolation to connection is not about dissolving the self, but about experiencing a profound sense of belonging while retaining one's individuality. It's the paradox of Yalom's existentialism. We are alone, yet we are driven to connect. And it is in these moments of brave, authentic encounter that the sharp edges of our inevitable loneliness are softened, reminding us that even across the deepest chasms, threads of shared humanity can always be found. This leads us naturally to the next step. If connection is possible, how do we then learn to truly be with ourselves when no one else is around? We've explored the unavoidable nature of existential loneliness and the vital role of authentic connection in mitigating its sting. But what happens when those connections aren't immediately available, or when the deep human need for individual reflection calls? This is where Irvin Yalom introduces a profound distinction. The difference between the aching void of loneliness and the rich, restorative space of solitude is a shift from a deficit to an opportunity, a journey of learning to embrace your own company, not as a last resort, but as a path to deeper self-understanding and meaning. This transformation is beautifully illuminated in Yalom's Staring at the Sun, Overcoming the Terror of Death, a book that, while primarily about mortality, is fundamentally about how we live. Yalom argues that confronting our ultimate concerns, death, freedom, isolation, and meaninglessness, can paradoxically enhance our lives. When it comes to isolation, learning to tolerate and even appreciate our own company is a critical part of this existential courage. He suggests that much of our fear of death is intertwined with the fear of being utterly alone in that final moment. By learning to be present with ourselves, in moments of quiet reflection or introspection, we build an inner resilience that prepares us for all forms of aloneness. True solitude, in Yalom's view, isn't an escape from the world, but a deeper engagement with our inner world. It's a space where creativity flourishes, where self-reflection deepens, and where we can truly listen to our own thoughts and feelings without the constant noise and demands of external interaction. For many, the idea of being alone with their thoughts is terrifying, a direct consequence of the masks we discussed earlier. We've grown accustomed to external distractions as a means of avoiding the discomfort that arises when we're left to confront our inner landscape. However, Yalom's approach suggests that by leaning into this discomfort, by daring to stare at the sun of our inner aloneness, we can discover hidden strengths and resources. Think of it as cultivating an internal home within yourself, a place you can always return to, regardless of external circumstances. This internal sanctuary is built through practices of mindfulness, self-compassion, and honest self-inquiry. It's about developing a robust inner life that is not dependent on constant external validation or companionship. This isn't to say that human connection becomes less important. Rather, it makes those connections more authentic and less desperate. When we are comfortable in our own skin, we engage with others out of desire, not out of frantic need to fill a void. Yalom's patients often come to terms with this. As they peel back layers of defense and confront their existential realities, they begin to discover an unexpected sense of peace in their own company. They learn that being alone doesn't necessarily mean being lonely. It can mean being whole, being present, and being deeply connected to their own unique existence. This reframe allows them to face periods of actual physical aloneness, whether due to life circumstances, a quiet evening, or personal reflection, not with dread, but with a sense of opportunity for growth and self-discovery. This mastery over one's internal state, transforming feared loneliness into welcome solitude, is a powerful step towards living a more meaningful and integrated life, setting the stage for practical application in forging deeper bonds. We traverse the landscape of inherent loneliness, uncovered the masks we wear, celebrated the healing power of authentic encounter, and even found solace in solitude. Now, the crucial question arises: how we translate these profound insights from Irvin Yalom's world into tangible actions for our daily lives. This section moves from the philosophical to the eminently practical, offering a Yalom prescription, actionable steps drawn directly from his therapeutic approach, and the rich tapestry of his patient's stories, found in works like Love's Executioner and other tales of psychotherapy and Mama and the meaning of life. Yalom's brilliance lies not just in his theoretical depth, but in his ability to illustrate how these complex ideas play out in the messy, beautiful reality of human relationships. The prescription isn't a rigid set of rules, but rather a guiding philosophy for fostering the kind of deep connections that truly alleviate the pain of isolation. First and foremost, Yalom advocates for radical honesty and vulnerability, both with yourself and with others. Remember the masks we discussed? The first step is to consciously begin to lower them. This isn't about oversharing or spilling every secret, but about daring to bring more of your authentic self to your interactions. As Yalom frequently demonstrates in his case studies, the moment a patient bravely reveals a shameful secret or a deep fear, the therapist, and often fellow group members, respond with empathy and understanding, not judgment. This act of vulnerability, while terrifying, is the bedrock of genuine intimacy. It shows others that you trust them enough to be real, inviting them to reciprocate. Secondly, Yalom emphasizes the power of here and now engagement. This means truly being present in your conversations and relationships, rather than being lost in your own thoughts, planning your next response, or judging the other person. Pay attention not just to the words, but to the emotions, the body language, and the unspoken dynamics between you and the other person. In the theory and practice of group psychotherapy, Yalom constantly pushes group members to comment on their feelings about each other in the moment, fostering a profound level of immediacy and authenticity that strips away pretense. This kind of presence creates a fertile ground for mutual understanding and connection. A third vital component is empathy and active listening. Yalom's stories are replete with examples of how profound healing occurs when one person truly feels heard and understood by another. This isn't just about nodding along. It's about making a genuine effort to step into the other person's shoes, to feel what they might be feeling, and to communicate that understanding back to them. It requires curiosity, patience, and a willingness to set aside your own agenda momentarily. When someone feels deeply understood, the sense of isolation begins to recede. Fourth, Yalom encourages taking responsibility for your own relational patterns. If you consistently find yourself feeling isolated, or if your relationships are superficial, reflect on your own contribution. Are you avoiding intimacy? Are you waiting for others to initiate? Are you projecting your fears onto others? This self-awareness, often painful but ultimately liberating, is crucial for breaking destructive cycles and intentionally building healthier connections. Yalom often challenges his patients to examine their interpersonal process, how they actually relate to others in the therapy room, as this mirrors their relationships outside. Finally, and perhaps most subtly, is the cultivation of a sense of shared humanity. This ties back to the concept of universality. When you approach interactions with the understanding that every person, like you, carries their own burdens, fears, and hopes, a deeper compassion emerges. This shared recognition of our common human condition, our inevitable struggles with death, freedom, isolation, and meaning, can paradoxically be the most powerful force for connection. It's the realization that while we are all unique, we are also all fundamentally existentially in the same boat. By embracing these Yalomian principles, vulnerability, presence, empathy, self-responsibility, and a sense of shared humanity, we can actively forge deeper, more meaningful bonds that transform our experience of loneliness. It's about moving beyond superficial interactions to create relationships that truly nourish the soul. This leads us to our final, overarching point: how these practical steps contribute to a life lived meaningfully, even with the ever-present awareness of our fundamental aloneness. We started by acknowledging the bedrock truth. Loneliness, in its deepest existential sense, is an undeniable part of the human condition. We then explored the various masks we wear to avoid this reality, the profound healing that comes from authentic connection, and the liberating power of transforming loneliness into meaningful solitude. Now, we arrive at the culmination of Irvin Yalom's wisdom, The realization that by bravely confronting our existential realities, especially our aloneness, we don't just endure life, we craft a more authentic, purposeful, and profoundly meaningful existence. This is the ultimate Yalom legacy. For Yalom, the journey isn't about eradicating loneliness, which he argues is impossible, but about learning to live with it in a way that enriches, rather than diminishes, our lives. The fear of being alone, the terror of isolation, often drives us into superficial relationships, addictive behaviors, or a relentless pursuit of external validation. But when we begin to integrate the understanding that we are, at our core, separate beings, a powerful shift occurs. We are freed from the exhausting quest for absolute fusion with another, and instead can invest our energy in truly living. Consider the characters in the Schopenhauer Cure. For instance, many of them grapple with profound isolation and a lack of meaning. It is through the process of facing their own existential dilemmas, often mirroring the experiences of others in the group, that they begin to forge a path toward purpose. Meaning, in Yalom's view, is not something inherent in the universe waiting to be discovered, but rather something we create through our actions, our relationships, our values, and our contributions. And this creation of meaning happens most powerfully when we are fully present and responsible for our own lives, unburdened by the illusions of escaping our fundamental aloneness. This leads to a paradox. Accepting our isolation can actually deepen our capacity for connection. When we no longer desperately cling to others to fill an inner void, our relationships become freer, more honest, and more robust. We connect out of a genuine desire for shared experience and understanding, rather than out of fearful need. The courage to be truly alone, to face one's own thoughts and feelings without distraction, is the very same courage that allows for true intimacy. As Yalom often implies, a relationship between two whole, self-aware individuals is far richer than one between two who try and complete each other. Ultimately, Yalom's body of work offers a powerful invitation. Don't flee from the silence of your own being. Don't hide from the inevitability of your unique journey. Instead, lean into it. By understanding that your aloneness is a universal human truth, you can paradoxically feel more connected to the vast tapestry of humanity. By accepting your freedom and responsibility, you are empowered to make choices that align with your deepest values. And by embracing the finitude of life, you are spurred to live each moment more fully, creating meaning in every authentic interaction, every moment of self-reflection, and every contribution you make to the world. The ultimate Yalom legacy is a roadmap not just for overcoming the pain of loneliness, but for leveraging the truth of aloneness as a catalyst for a life of profound meaning, connection, and peace. It's a reminder that even when we stand on the precipice of existence, we can choose to gaze into the chasm not with fear, but with a quiet strength, knowing that our human journey, in all its solitary glory, is also deeply intertwined with the journeys of all others. If Yalom's insights resonated with you today, don't let this conversation end here. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss our deep dives into human experience. We're building a community dedicated to understanding ourselves better, and your comments fuel our next explorations. Share your thoughts below. What's your biggest takeaway from Yalom on loneliness? Let's keep learning and growing together. See you in the next video.